This week, I learned about how what you eat can help fight cancer, and I am sharing it with you.
Hello and welcome. Let's talk about something that's on a lot of our minds, cancer. It's so easy to feel like it's just a roll of the genetic dice or just plain bad luck. But what if one of the most powerful shields we have in this fight is actually sitting right on our kitchen table 3 times a day? Today, we are going to cut through all the noise and explore what the real, evidence-based science says about the incredible role diet can play in preventing cancer. Okay, let's kick things off with a number that is honestly pretty staggering. 40%. Major institutions, we're talking the World Cancer Research Fund, estimate that this is the percentage of all cancers that could potentially be prevented just by lifestyle and dietary changes alone. This isn't some fringe idea, you know? This is mainstream scientific consensus. It's a huge deal because it tells us that the choices we make every single day matter a lot. And this quote from the Nutrition Journal just nails it. 30 to 40% prevented by lifestyle and diet. This really sets the stage for our whole explainer today, because the core idea here is empowerment. It means we have way more control than we think. We don't have to be passive bystanders in our own health story. We can be active defenders. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll really dig into that 40% number. Then we're going to look under the hood at your body's metabolic engine to understand why what you eat has such a big impact. After that, we get super practical. We'll talk about building a defensive plate and also what red flags to look out for. We'll check out some real-world proof, and finally, wrap it all up with an action plan you can actually use. All right, let's dive into our first section. Look, we can't change our genes, right? But what we can do is change the environment those genes live in. There's a great saying, genetics might load the gun, but it's often our lifestyle that pulls the trigger. We're the architects of our own cellular world. And this is absolutely key. For anyone who doesn't smoke, the food you eat and the activity you get become the biggest levers you can pull to lower your cancer risk. It's that simple. Some studies even suggest that when you combine these things, you could slash the risk for major cancers like breast, colorectal, and prostate by a staggering 60 to 70%. Okay, so we've established that food matters, right? But now let's get into the why. Before we even get to specific foods, we need to understand the big picture, the internal environment. It really all comes down to the metabolic soil in our bodies, the conditions that can either help cancer cells thrive or stop them in their tracks. Now take a look at this. It might seem complicated, but stick with me, because it's a huge piece of the puzzle. When we eat things like refined sugar or white flour, it sets off this chain reaction. Our blood sugar shoots up, which makes our body release a flood of insulin. And that, in turn, boosts something called insulin-like growth factor 1, or IGF-1. The easiest way to think of IGF-1 is like a powerful fertilizer for all our cells, including potential cancer cells. It tells them to grow and divide, and, this is crucial, it also shuts down the body's natural self-destruct program for damaged cells. The end result? An inflammatory environment where cancer gets a green light. And this table here, it shows you exactly how that plays out. You can see how excess body weight, which is linked to up to 20% of cancer deaths in women, isn't just sitting there. It's an active metabolic engine. For postmenopausal women, fat tissue actually becomes a major source of estrogen, which can fuel certain cancers. That high glycemic load we just talked about, it fires up that IGF-1 pathway. And just overall, excess calories can fuel the very cell growth that defines cancer. All right. Enough of the scary stuff. Let's flip the script and talk about playing offense. How do we build that physiological shield? This is all about loading our plates with the foods that actively protect our cells, based on solid recommendations from groups like the American Cancer Society and the World Cancer Research Fund. You know that 5-a-day slogan? Well, it's way more than just a catchy phrase. It's a baseline grounded in really solid science. The idea is to get between 400 and 800 grams of fruits and veggies every day. And get this, the research shows that the peak protective benefits really kick in when we hit 500 to 600 grams of vegetables alone. It's because they're packed with micronutrients for DNA repair, their fiber helps protect the colon, and eating a whole rainbow of different colors gives you this amazing team of antioxidants that all work together. And within that huge world of veggies, you've got your all-stars, your MVPs. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli have this incredible compound called sulforaphane that literally helps our body's detoxification systems. And here's a pro tip. Broccoli sprouts have as much sulforaphane as a whole head of broccoli. Then you have oleum veggies like garlic and onions, which are full of sulfur compounds that are especially good at protecting our digestive system. And finally, lycopene, the stuff that makes tomatoes red, is amazing at slowing prostate cancer growth, and it actually gets more powerful when you cook it. Now, let's talk about a food that's basically a nutritional superstar, flaxseed. I like to call it the triple threat. First, you get amazing fiber for your gut. Second, you get anti-inflammatory omega-3 fats. But the real magic is in something called lignans. Our gut bacteria turn these lignans into compounds that can actually bind to our estrogen receptors, physically blocking the body's stronger, growth-promoting estrogens from fueling tumors. It's incredible. And the research on this is just wow. Studies have shown flaxseed can reduce human breast cancer growth. In animal studies, adding flaxseed to the diet led to a 32 to 63% drop in melanoma tumors. So the bottom line is, adding ground flaxseed to your diet is a simple but really powerful defensive move. Okay, so we've loaded up on offense. Now we've got to talk defense. Building a shield also means knowing what things to steer clear of. So this next part is all about the foods and eating patterns that are consistently linked to a higher risk of cancer. So when it comes to dietary red flags, there are basically three big ones you really want to keep on your radar. First, as we already talked about, refined sugars and flours. They're basically fuel for those growth pathways that tumors absolutely love. Second, red meat, and especially processed meat, is a major driver of colorectal cancer risk. And third, our modern diet often creates a big imbalance between omega-6 and omega-3 fats, which can lead to the kind of chronic inflammation that helps cancer along. And I want to be super clear here. This isn't just an opinion. This is a formal classification from global health authorities. Processed meats are in the same risk category as asbestos and tobacco. The problem comes from preservatives like nitrates and nitrates and from harmful compounds that form when the meat is cooked at high heat. The data is just undeniable. 50 grams a day, that's about 2 slices of bacon, is enough to raise your risk of colorectal cancer by 20%. Okay, so we've looked at the science, we've looked at specific foods, but does this stuff actually work in the real world? Let's look at the evidence from studies on entire dietary patterns, and then we'll cover some really important cautions you need to know. And this is where you really see the power of the pattern. It's not about one magic superfood. It's about how everything works together. One study found that Italian women who ate a lot of raw veggies and olive oil saw their breast cancer risk drop by as much as 61%. Another study showed just how fast our bodies can respond. Breast cancer survivors boosted the protective plant compounds in their blood by over 200% in just 1 year, simply by eating more vegetables. Okay, but, and this is a really important but, no single diet is automatically perfect. This table shows what I mean. Meat eaters often fall short on things like fiber and folate, but look at the other side. Vegans and vegetarians can face a staggering 92% prevalence of iodine deficiency, not to mention risks for B12 and vitamin D. The key takeaway is that an effective anti-cancer diet has to be smart and consciously fill in these potential gaps. So, keeping that in mind, here are a few essential things to remember. First, bioavailability. Some nutrients, like iron from plants, are just harder for our bodies to absorb, but a simple trick like pairing it with a vitamin C-rich food like bell peppers can make a huge difference. Second, you can't just pop a pill and call it a day. The evidence is clear that supplements are not a shortcut for cancer prevention. The real protection comes from whole foods. And finally, vitamin D is kind of the one big exception. A lot of us, especially in the winter, just can't get enough from the sun, and we need it for its anti-cancer activity. All right, we have covered so much ground, from the deep science to the real-world studies. Now, let's pull it all together into an action plan you can actually use to start building your defensive plate starting today. So if you're wondering, okay, what do I do tomorrow? Here's your checklist. Number 1, maintain a healthy weight to keep those growth hormones balanced. 2, make plants the absolute foundation of your diet. 3, shoot for that 5 to 10 serving sweet spot of produce every day. 4, make a point to get those superstar cruciferous and oleum veggies in every week. 5, limit the red and processed meats and ditch the sugary drinks. And finally, number 6, be smart about it. Make sure you're covering potential nutrient gaps like B12, D, and iodine, using fortified foods or supplements if you need to. You know, we started with that big number, that up to 40% of cancers are preventable. That's not meant to be a burden, it's meant to be incredibly empowering. The science is clear. Your plate is one of the most powerful tools you have to stack the odds in your favor. So the only question left is, how will you start building your defense today? Thanks for watching.
Did you learn something new and exciting about how to eat healthy? What are your thoughts? Share it here. I want to know about it too.